Sunday evening, everybody, and welcome back to another video. And tonight, I'm kind of backed up, so I'm going to do 3 videos in a row. So I'm just going to try and keep these as brief as I can, because tomorrow is going to be my big one. That's going to be the movies I watched in July, so I just decided to film all 3 of these videos tonight and work on them for like the next couple days, then get them out to you. But anyway, to start this little binge watch, I'm going to be talking about the 2 versions of The Haunted Mansion and Haunted Mansion. I know it's very confusing, but this is going to be a similar video to my Little Mermaid video, and I'm just going to talk about each movie and comparisons and contrasts. So let's go ahead and get into it. And both of these movies are very different. This one is more kid friendly, and the newer one is focusing on like more mature themes. So I'll get into that later in this video. But let's start off with The Haunted Mansion. Released in 2003, this was a movie that nobody really wanted. And this actually released the month after Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl, which was a more successful movie. And it's honestly one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. This one was too, but this is just about like Haunted Mansion. So this movie is based off of a ride at Disneyland and Disney World, and it just tells a story of like Eddie Murphy and his family going to this mansion to see if it's available for sale. But they get trapped and spend the night, and they are plagued by many, many ghosts. And the whole conflict of this movie is having Edward Gracie trying to get with Eddie Murphy's wife, because she looks like the woman that he loved in life. Let's get into this. Let's get into the beginning of this movie, because it really sets off the tone of this movie. It's very dark, but very comedic at the same time. But in my opinion, the way this thing begins is very well done, because it like tells like the tragic love story between these 2 characters. So essentially, the way this thing begins, it's kind of like a ballroom dance at this haunted mansion. Well, it wasn't haunted in them times, but it tells a story of an interracial couple trying to get together, and Gracie discovers his beloved Elizabeth dead, and he believes that she poisoned herself. And as you watch this movie, you definitely see that something isn't adding up. But when this beginning ends, Edward Gracie hung himself in the attic. It's a dark intro to this movie. And it's probably one of the best beginnings to a Disney movie I've seen in a while. But this movie got really generic and family friendly because of Eddie Murphy's on-screen presence. He's kind of like silly and goofy, but he does what he can to make people watch this. It's a very enjoyable movie, and the cast is stacked. I mean, Terrence Stamp plays Ramsley, which is the butler, and he turns out to be the villain, and he is probably one of the most menacing Disney villains, because you don't know if he's good or bad, but the revelation is that he poisoned Elizabeth because he didn't approve of Gracie's and Elizabeth's relationship. Sounds a little racist, but it definitely comes together. And essentially, Eddie Murphy also basically rides the ride and discovers Madame Leota, played by Jennifer Tilly in this one. And I'm going to say, Jennifer Tilly was very, very campy, as she always is. And I thought that Madame Leota was probably the weakest part of this movie. I'll get into that when I talk about Haunted Mansion. But, yeah, she's kind of like a throwaway character. I understand that she might be like a very small character in the ride, and she's a very small character in this movie. But, yeah. The kids that he's with are basically stereotypical 2000s kids. They're just like there to like deliver that family dynamic. They are fun to watch, but I think overall I pretty much enjoy like the whole ghost story aspect to this. It's very watchable for like younger kids trying to get into horror, and it's not scary. It's just a very fun movie to put on from time to time. This movie's 20 years old, and it still kind of holds up to me. But it is very goofy and campy. That's the way this Disney movie should have been like. So, overall, this movie has some generic aspects to it, but it is vastly different from some of the live-action remakes that we got in these past few years. Because this isn't a live-action remake, it's actually an original movie based off of a ride, which kind of makes it better because it stands alone. And you don't have to like see that retread with it. But this weekend marked the release of Haunted Mansion. So I'll get into that in a minute. But overall, I would give The Haunted Mansion, again, very confusing, I would honestly give this like a B. Because it is very watchable and just an easy 90-minute romp. So that was The Haunted Mansion. Let's talk about Haunted Mansion. And this movie at first really wasn't on my radar because Disney hasn't had that great of a year, especially with the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes and all that. It's been all over the place. But this movie was kind of like a refreshing middle grade horror, if you will. And this movie is totally different from the original. For one, this movie is PG-13 and it's like 30 minutes longer than its predecessor. And this movie has a very stacked cast. You have Lakeith Stanfield, which is your protagonist, and I believe his name was Ben. Yeah. You have Rosario Dawson, Danny DeVito, Tiffany Haddish, Jamie Lee Curtis is Madame Leota, and even Jared Leto's in here. He's the Hatbox Ghost. And I really needed to look that up to confirm that, because I never would have thought that that was actually Jared Leto, because he has like a deep voice. And this movie like explores the topic of grief and a lot of these characters, especially with Lakeith Stanfield, because this movie starts off with like a love story between a girl that he met at a party, and his girlfriend was like into like paranormal stuff, and she died in a car accident, and now he is picking up that stuff because he's like a tour guide for like certain haunted places throughout New Orleans. Which I forgot to mention that both of these movies took place in New Orleans, so there's a comparison. But I really did enjoy a lot of these characters. I forgot to mention Owen Wilson in here. He's basically like a priest that is not essentially a priest. He actually turns out to be like a fraud. I really enjoyed Owen Wilson in this one, but I think Lakeith Stanfield is the definite standout for this movie. This is probably like the best I've ever seen him in a movie. I mean, he was excellent in Get Out, and that's really all that I can remember. But he's still an up-and-coming actor, but I think this movie will like maybe cement him into taking more roles, because his backstory is very tragic, and he just wants to get to this haunted mansion to see if he can see his girlfriend one last time. But what makes this movie falter for me, it's very generic and very middle of the road. And I don't really see myself rewatching this as many times as I did for the original. Both of these movies are very watchable though, but I think this one is darker and more mature. And the CGI in here is a little bit better than the original one, because all of these ghosts look very, very creepy. I mean, you have like a mariner, You have like an axe wielding bride, and a lot of other ghosts. But I really don't have much else to say about this one, but it's a very watchable movie, of course, and it's got a great cast. Probably one of the best casts of the year. Well, not really knocking the next movie that I'm going to talk about here in a minute, but this cast was very dynamic in a way, and they just had fun making this movie. Now, I guarantee you this movie is unfortunately going to flop, but I really did enjoy it. Again, it's not really all that scary. It does have some very macabre imagery, but you don't see like any gore or any blood. It's just like Goosebumps and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Which Scary Stories is definitely more gruesome and more macabre than Goosebumps. I'm still surprised that that movie didn't even get an R rating. But I can throw this on and have fun with it here and there. But overall, I would give the remake, Haunted Mansion, I would also give this a B. So, that was my video about both versions of the Haunted Mansion. Hope you guys enjoyed, and the next video I'm going to film my Oppenheimer review. I saw that yesterday, and definitely want to talk about it like in a minute. So look out for that video next. I'll see you guys in a minute. Adios. Peace.